And the first thing I will do will be to read the script, which says, any member of the public wishing to be heard shall complete a physical or virtual comment card and present the card to the clerk of the trust prior to the start of the board meeting. Members of the public recognized by the chair will have 3 minutes to speak on a single subject matter submitted on their comment card presented prior to the start of the meeting. The clerk of the trust will function as the official timer. At a previous meeting, we passed a motion to allow board members to participate virtually so long as we had a quorum physically present due to the extraordinary circumstances of COVID-19. Given that the county state of emergency has expired, the board would have to find that there is another extraordinary circumstance for a board member in order for them to allow them to participate and vote virtually. Otherwise, members may be allowed to participate virtually, but will not be allowed to vote. Anybody know of any extraordinary circumstances? Don't think that there are any. Clerk will now call the roll and verify there are at least 6 trust members present at the meeting. So, Ashley?
Here. Member Smith. Member Cornell. Here. Member Hart. Member Cornell. Here. Member Simon. Here. Member Snyder. Here. Member Twombly. Here. Member Wilson Bullard.
Here. Are there any participating virtually? Okay. Now for the agenda, any revisions to the agenda, Colin? So if we're going to approve the consent agenda as well as the regular agenda, so unless there's anybody who wants to pull anything off the consent agenda, now would be a time for a motion.
I'll move approval of the agenda and the consent agenda. Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on the motion? Any public discussion? Ashley, is there anything from? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's unanimous. Okay. Time for the chairman's report. Did everybody see the schedules? Any problems with the schedules that Colin provided for us?
Chair, did you want to do the presentation first?
Which presentation?
So the consent agenda was mislabeled. It says chairman's report, should say consent agenda.
Okay.
Presentation, then chairman's report. You can do it any order you'd like.
No, presentation's fine. We've started this, so we'll go ahead and do this one, then we'll do the presentation.
Okay.
Any problems? If not, then can we have a motion?
Schedule.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Any public discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion is unanimous. Okay, presentation?
Yes, we have the partners for the Community Partnership School at Howard Bishop here. They're to the podium.
Okay.
And excited to hear them. This was actually at Dr. Hart's request originally. I see she's not here yet, but we're providing some match funding for their wellness coordinator. Dr. Hart said she wanted to hear what's going on at the community schools. They were gracious enough to come, and I think they have several representatives here. Partnership candidate, I'll introduce them. This is part of the presentation. Oh, there she is.
The floor is y'all's.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, we want to say thank you for allowing us to come speak to the body so that we can present on community partnership schools, and we also want to say thank you for your support. I am Rebecca Couch. I'm the Area Director for Community Partnership Schools in the Northeast, and this is Latoya Lopez, and she is the Director for Howard Bishop Middle School Community Partnership School. We do have some cabinet members present.
So I want to say to the principal, Mr. Mike Gamble, who's here today from Howard Bishop Middle School. We want to say Dr. Nelly, who's also on the cabinet and the school board. Now, we have several that try to get in on the Zoom link, so hopefully we can get that.
So I'm going to go to the first slide.
Can we just advance it for them?
I can, if you want to just advance.
Click it.
Okay. Oh, thank you. So, the first slide that you'll see is, and you should have this in your packet as well, is what is a community school? So a community school is both a physical place as well as a set of partnerships between a school and other community resources. And we all know the challenge that our students face. So I'm not going to go into great detail because that's why we're here, is to address these challenges. And then we, as a community partnership school, we have found a good solution to the challenge. Community partnership schools actually started several years ago at Evans High School between a partnership between Children's Home Society, Orange County Public Schools, and University of Central Florida to address the needs in that community. And they developed this model and this framework, and we'll talk a little bit more about the pillars of community partnership schools. The next slide is about the budget. So I think there have been some questions about the budget and how community partnership schools are funded. It costs approximately $325,000 to effectively run a community partnership school with a full staff and programs. Historically, Howard Bishop Middle School has received $255,000, and we've raised additional funds for programming, but could not fund the wellness coordinator position. So to fully fund, that would mean that there's 3 coordinators, a director, and then multiple programs. There is a required match. This is funding that we get from the Florida Department of Education. So the legislature several years ago created a line item, recurring item in the budget for community partnership schools, and the amount is based off the size of the school. So Howard Bishop gets was getting $255,000, and much larger schools were getting up to $320,000. This year is the first year we've received a 10% step down in funding. So this funding was not intended to continue just inevitably, like for the rest of the time of the community partnership school. It was there to be more of a startup and for the community and the partners to join in together to help create and sustain the program. And I have here some of the numbers so you can see the decline over the next few years. So let's talk about the first pillar. So we talked about community partnership schools being a unique model, and that's because we rely on 4 pillars and partners that help us address those pillars. So expanded learning is our first pillar that we focus on. We provide academic supports and enrichments that take place before, after school, in the summer, during breaks. And some examples of that would be tutoring, mentoring, enrichment activities. Since 2018, we've also received CAP grant funding, which has enabled us to provide tutoring. We pay teachers to tutor after school. We have an acceleration program for students who are over age 1 or more years to help them accelerate back up to their correct grade level so that they can graduate on time. And then it's also helped pay for behavioral health counseling. And then we have the next pillar, which is family and community engagement. This brings families and the community into the school as partners to address student success and make the school a neighborhood center. Some examples that we do at Howard Bishop, we have family resources, workshops, volunteerism. Dr. Karen Cole-Smith, who serves on our Community Leadership Council, has been instrumental in helping us implement an initiative called Educating Parents in Technology, where we serve all of Alachua County parents if they're interested in being served for technical support on district platforms. That's just one example. Collaborative leadership, this is really what makes this community school unique, is the collaborative leadership. It's a culture of shared governance and collective decision-making towards a unified vision. So when we start a community partnership school, we have to identify community partners, and they each sign on for a 25-year Memorandum of Understanding. So we have a 25-year MOU when we start up the community partnership school, and that's just the partners sign on saying they're committed to the sustainability of the program and they're committed to providing resources. And some of the examples of what we do, we have monthly cabinet meetings, we share resources, we have annual strategic planning sessions, and we also do needs assessments every 3 years. So we never come into a community with like a packaged community partnership school. We have a motto that if you've seen one community partnership school, you have seen one community partnership school, because we base what we provide to the community off of the community needs. And our university partners help us do that needs assessment. And I think we've provided that latest needs assessment for you. So let's talk about the Children's Trust and how we have fit together. So we would be on the next slide. Yes. So we have a wellness coordinator that's being funded by the Children's Trust, And this is going to fund the wellness coordinator position as well as some events that we can put on in the community. I said earlier that we've gotten up to $255,000. We've gotten our first 10% step down this year. But that was never fully enough to fund a full-time staff position for a wellness coordinator. So that was pretty much the position that we've had to sacrifice over the years. And it's shown in our data, because we collect a lot of data and we submit that data to the Department of Education in quarterly reports. So we have provided some vision, we've provided some dental, some medical care, but we can do better. And we feel like with this position, we'll be able to do that because we'll be able to coordinate services more effectively and efficiently, and we'll be able to track those services and close out referrals that we receive from families. And we can also connect families to health, dental, vision, nutrition, and mental health awareness, and we will be able to do community wellness events as well. The next slide is these are the performance measures that we have worked with the Children's Trust to develop. So these are the outcomes that we're going to be providing you based off of the funding. We can go to the next slide. So this slide is just about the partners, because this is what really makes us move in a cohesive manner towards our goals. We have that strategic plan, we set annual goals, we set 5-year goals. And so our first partner, and probably the most important, is the school district. And the school district, it has a fully committed superintendent, a fully committed principal, facility use, office space, and a data sharing agreement. We've been working with the school district on the data sharing agreement, and we actually have a meeting with Superintendent Simon, and I think it's in a couple of days, so we'll be seeing you again. I'm sorry, tomorrow. So we'll be seeing you again. But Alachua County Public Schools has provided us with an annual match of in-kind for space of $145,600, and that's based off of the district calculation. Our next slide is on the nonprofit, and obviously that would be us, Children's Home Society. So we are the nonprofit. There are 26 community partnership schools across the state of Florida. We manage 20 of those. So we are kind of the leader among community partnership schools. And we provide connections to the school, businesses, organizations, philanthropy, community, and residents. We've been in business for over 100 years, and social services is our niche. And so we come in and we help provide that. We also provide financial, legislative, and administrative support, and we have a full-time counselor that we provide to Howard Bishop. The next partner is our university or college partner. In this case, we have two. We're very fortunate to have two. We have Santa Fe College and University of Florida. They're present in the school's community. That's one of their requirements. They have to be in the local community. They connect the institution's resources with the identified school and community needs. So again, back to that needs assessment, we identify needs, we work with our partners to help address those needs. And an example is we have Dr. Lori Dassa from UF College of Education. She serves on our cabinet, and she's been instrumental in providing us interns for expanded learning programs. And Santa Fe College has also provided us with support for our Student Leadership Council. We have a Student Leadership Council made up of students, and they provide mentoring for those students. And then we have our healthcare provider. And this has to be a community-based provider. They have to have comprehensive medical services. We're very fortunate. We have the Department of Health as our provider. And we have a unique situation at Howard Bishop because we have kind of a telehealth model, a linked model, and an on-site model because they do come once a week on site. They also provide a full-time nurse to the school. And I think is that our timer?
No.
Okay.
You have no time.
So we have 4 model components that are part of the community partnership school. 4 positions are required to really do this effectively, and that leads us down to our org structure, and then with that helps us become certification eligible. So if you go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about that. The UCS certification, in order to receive this funding, you have to get reviewed for your efficiency, your effectiveness, and your outcomes. So we get the Department of Education funding, we present quarterly reports, but we also go through a readiness assessment after year 3. Howard Bishop did go through a readiness assessment. They then provided us with feedback, and then we implement that feedback, and we will go for year 5 readiness assessment next October. And if we get that, we will become a certified community partnership school, and that renews our funding for another 5 years, and then we would go up for reaffirmation in 5 years. So we're coming upon that, and it requires us to get certain standards and to make sure that those standards are met. And there's like an all or nothing standard, and then there's some that if you have them, you have them. So if you turn to the next slide, you can see there are 12 standards that we have to meet in order to receive that continual funding from the Department of Education. But of those 12, there's many sub-standards that go underneath. So we have about 150 plus standards that we have to go through. We have to provide evidence, we have to provide narration, we have to provide data, and that shows if we are eligible for that certification. And that's going to be in October. And one of those standards is Standard 7, which is our wellness standard. And there are fundamental practices that you either have it or you don't. And if you don't have it, then you fail certification. One of those standards was the wellness coordinator position. And you have actually helped us fulfill that standard, and now we are very confident that we will be able to get certified as a community partnership school and continue to renew that funding and continue to provide services to the community, the students, and their families. And that is the end of the presentation. So now we have an opportunity for any questions that you might have.
Any questions? Dr. Hart?
Count on me to have a billion questions. Could you tell us, I guess I'm a little concerned that your data sharing agreement with the school system isn't in place yet. You've been in action for 3 years. So what's the prognosis for that, and what's the holdup?
So the data sharing agreement, we have an MOU. So we've been getting the data that we need to do the reporting, no problem. The district has been so gracious. They have people on our cabinet that help us get the data that we need. It's not student identifiable data, it's just like how many people have been served for services and how many have been repeat services, that kind of thing. And so we've never had an issue with that. This data sharing agreement that we've been working through is actually for UCF, so that they can then get the data and put it into a program called Learning Circle, which makes it easier for us to pull data at a much faster rate. We've been doing it, but this will enable us to use their system. So it's more for UCF to have the access than it is for us, because we've had the access through our MOU.
Okay, so that leads me to my next question, which will give us a little more context. How many families have used the services, and how many have used it more than once? Like, how many people are you reaching?
Sure, I'll let LaToya answer.
So it varies. So we have a parent coordinator. So we're talking about this school year alone, starting from August to now. She serviced over 27 families with either rent, utilities, or food support. And for our extended learning coordinator, we currently have 77 students in the after-school program. And those students are getting services from tutoring. And for our acceleration program, we have a total of 29 students in that. And acceleration is our program that is for our over 8 sixth graders. So these are sixth graders who've been retained a year or more previously in elementary, and they're able to finish middle school in 2 years because they go full circle. So they go summer and during break, and we're able to pay staff to do those things for us. And then our health and wellness, which we need a wellness coordinator for, and we are so gracious that you guys have supported us in this. We have so far only serviced about 20 families total, but we know there's a bigger need for that. We're getting the feedback and then the follow-up in the services. So we're hoping to be able to service, moving forward, more families. But for this year, we've only been able to service 20. But for the last 3 years, we've serviced over 65 students in our acceleration program. So 65 students who are currently on track to graduate for high school. For after school, we've serviced over 300 students in the last 3 years for after school. And then for family services alone, we ended up at 143 families last year with COVID, whether it was food, lights, utilities, medical supplies, clothing, or whatever.
And this is available to every student and every family in the school. As long as you're a student at the school, you can come access the services. We have coordinators on campus. They're very visible. Our expanded learning coordinator walks the halls with her cart so the kids know who she is. We provide snacks for students so they become comfortable with coming in and accessing the services. And the after-school services are free of charge. We don't charge for those.
And we also provide services for siblings, so we do our feeder schools. So if you're at Howard Bishop, you have a sibling at one of the other schools, if they need dental support or they need food or something, we also support them as well. So we do the whole family.
Do you conclude? Okay, Tina?
For your after-school, Jennings, local Jennings, do you have, have you tracked whether they're major program students or magnet students, or are you all keeping track of that?
So for our after-school program, part of our cap funding was fund the lower quartile students. So initially, before Bishop became a full after-school program through the community partnership school, we was a regular EDEP program, so parents were paying to get services. Once we became a community partnership school and received the cap funding, which allowed us to really target the lower quartile students, we kind of moved towards that process. So the majority of our students are the lower quartile students, and are the students who are identified as needing the most help. But we do service any student at the school. Any parent could use it. We do have some we do have some magnet students in the program, but a bulk of our students are those students who fall on the cusp in ones and twos.
Are you all actively recruiting, because you're 77 at the
I
program?
can't hear you say it again.
Are you all actively recruiting to
Yes.
increase your student enrollment if it's only 77?
Well, we have to, unfortunately, with teachers being brought away day to day and everything else, we are strategically adding staff, and with students, we want to still stay in the teacher ratio, and we want to get good outcomes. It's hard to get a middle schooler to go to after school. It really is, especially when middle school is not big on a lot of sports. So we still having to compete against some of the local sports after-school programs like Pop Warner and stuff, where kids rather be there than being in after school. So, again, just kind of baiting in with academics and doing those remedial skills, and then trying to get their buy-in and their parents' buy-in to come and, consistently come. And so, knock on wood or something, since school has started, we have maintained, our numbers have been pretty high, where kids are coming 3 to 4 days a week. And we only do 4-day-a-week after-school program. So we're really excited about that and keeping them engaged. But so right now, we capped off at 100 students for the year, and we only do that just based on teacher ratio. We're hoping that more teachers will feel better after Christmas break, and we can add that number up. But the most we are willing to take is 150, and we've identified 100 and I think it was, I want to say 198 cross campus wide was lower quartile for us. And so now we're looking at doing a before school program, and we're doing boot camp to kind of help address those other kids who might not be able to reach during after school.
Tell your athletic coaches, because I know middle school sports is big at Bishop, especially boys and girls basketball, and volleyball, but maybe you have some. So
we get them doing basketball and those things, but that consistency, when you have football, that's hard.
Yeah. Thank you.
My question is around outcomes. I'm assuming, given the range of services, what kinds of things are you measuring in terms of either school performance improvement or health improvement? What kinds of metrics are you using for outcomes?
Yeah.
I'll answer, and then I'll have LaToya answer as well. So part of the reporting that we have to do, the Department of Education has a return on impact. So we do have to show to them how the investment of dollars are producing a return on that investment. So we do track academic outcomes with students who are in acceleration. We track academic outcomes with students who are in expanded learning. We really could do a better job, honestly, with wellness, because we've just not had that person that can help us with the data and collecting and tracking that. So we do track number of people served, and we track mental health wait time. So we do try to keep that under a certain number so we don't have a wait list of students waiting to receive services. But as far as like outcomes with the behavioral health, they also do surveys, so we do track that. We can do better, and this is really gonna enable us to be able to do that, having that extra set of hands. Family and community engagement, we do surveys, so we do pre and post surveys, so we have that qualitative metric that we can look to, and then we also track, with referrals, we track from the beginning to the end of closeout, so we do track the amount of time that people are waiting to get service, whichever pillar that might be, we do track that. Right now, it's more of an input for some of the wellness. For the other pillars, we're really focused more on that outcome because we have the staff. But, yes, so we do track those things, and we do report that to the state every single quarter.
And we also look at attendance and, school-wide, behavior data. So my team and myself is a part of, student service team with Mr. Gamble, the other two assistant principals, and the school guidance counselors. And we meet once a week to kind of look at that data, to look at certain kids that, may need support and services. That's what we kind of use as an identifier, especially for behavior. Those are the kids that we kind of really want to give the full wraparound services to, and whether it's mental health support, whether it's academic support. And so those kids we track them constantly, making sure that those services are working, as well as using those services for intervention, to avoid suspension or out of class time.
Anything else? I'm not sure whether this goes to y'all or whether it goes to Colin, but y'all came up with the performance measures, and as far as the wellness, as far as the other part of the program, that's good that y'all told us about that. But since we're funding this, it's a measure. These are the measures that we see how our money was spent. And while I wasn't ecstatic about the first part, it was followed up by. It starts out with a number of referrals and what have you, but at the end it says how many of those referrals actually something happened. And, that's showing us that the money is being, how the money is actually being utilized. So, whoever came up with it, I commend y'all very much. You had the initial thing, which is kind of, okay, it's a referral, but then you put where you actually did something with those referrals. So thank y'all for that. Okay, well, thank y'all very much. Yes.
I saw part of your sample on helping people with access to food and become more economic. One that you have to help you expand.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your last part.
We have care navigators through our as well that work with community providers. And so I didn't know if you knew about them or if you've ever connected with them to help you expand your reach.
Collaborating with other entities.
We do, but we never collaborate with you.
Okay, I'll connect you with that. I've got some flyers. I'll get.
That would be great.
Thank you.
We're always looking to partner, because it's better to partner and not duplicate. So that's what we're looking to do. Yeah. And we've been able to use a lot of the community partnerships in the local area, for those services, food, for transportation, to get to the medical visits. So we're always looking for partners.
Ken?
Of the other 19 community schools you work with, are there any best practices around the state that we should be thinking about or that we're not doing?
That's a great question. So we have one that just got certified in St. Johns County. We have another that's in Duval that will get certified, and then another in St. Johns. Down in the central area, that's where the schools have been kind of there the longest. We have a lot that have like on-site clinics and telehealth. I have some, 2 schools in St. Johns County that have kiosks that they use. They're telehealth kiosks, so it really cuts down the wait time for parents and travel time to have to go get the medical visits. We are exploring that with, Ucs. They have, gotten a grant to help us get some of that technology at Howard Bishop so that we don't have to worry about, transporting students down to the DOH. It's been difficult with that because of COVID, and the Department of Health has just been inundated with having to deal with, the tracking and the testing and that kind of thing. But that's where we're heading. So, yes, there are some best practices when it comes to that. We have really, honestly, Howard Bishop, I would say, is used as a model across the state on cabinet leadership. Whenever we have new schools come on, we actually have them observe Howard Bishop's cabinet, because the school district has so many people, the instrumental people on the cabinet, as well as the partners. We have people from UF that are there. They actually have an ombudsman that's dedicated to us. So if we need something, we can connect with UF and they help us get it. They wrote for a Kellogg grant, UF did, to try to maybe expand the model. And I mean, it's just, when you talk about cabinets, Howard Bishop actually is the model for cabinet leadership. So that pillar of collaborative leadership, I would say Howard Bishop is probably the best in the state. So Alachua's got it going on when it comes to community partners.
No bias there, right?
And I have 7 schools. school. So I consider, you know how you have children, you don't want to favor one over the other, but so I have 7 babies that I manage across the Northeast, and I would say that Howard Bishop of all of my cabinets has the strongest.
Any further questions? Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it, and
Thank
good
you
luck.
for giving us your time and
Sure.
your support. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is one dear to my heart. It's the nominating committee, for the succession of officers. So how do you want to, how should we do this? 2 people? That sound good?
3 is usually better because then you don't have 5.
Okay. Or you just do one person?
Or you do one, right?
Okay, so who would like to volunteer for this, august committee?
Is this to replace the people who are voting on?
Right,
No, this is, I think, for officers.
right,
Yeah, for officers. Oh, for officers. Yeah, you're firing us, basically.
yeah, yes.
I thought you had just became chair, Maggie.
Well, that can happen.
I'll be on the nominating committee.
You're hoping that way you won't have,
persistent.
don't count on it.
I can join you, Nancy.
Okay, so Cheryl and Nancy and one more. Okay, thank you. And Pat. Okay,
Motion,
yes.
Art, Dr. Snyder, and the following.
Have a second? Any discussion? Any public discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, we didn't schedule a meeting, but we'll just send out a doodle poll or something.
Okay. Okay, and the next item is just, we sent a letter regarding the, appointments, and Ken, do I need to fill out something for the county?
We have the application on file, specified updated, and we should send it in.
Okay, all right. How, will y'all have a meeting for that, like you did before?
Yeah.
Okay, so I need to go to the meeting.
You sent this letter already?
Beg pardon? Beg pardon?
You sent this letter to Michelle?
No.
Did it go in? No. Do we need a motion to do that?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I'll move that we send a letter regarding need to appoint, send, I guess, 3 nominees, then, is that?
I think that's, is that what y'all did with Karen?
Karen and the other 2.
Okay.
Letter saying,
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion, did we get a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, any discussion?
I got a question. What was the motion? It was just to send.
The letter that's in the packet. No, it just says that, it's coming up and, the process is gonna start because my term is ending. So it just lets them know.
he stays on his term unless the governor appoints somebody else. We send, I presume you want to continue, so we'll send his name and the other 2 up to the governor after he's
And that I will continue to serve until he makes his decision, until they make their decision. Okay, so any discussion? Any public discussion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, next 2 items. Maggie is gonna be kind enough to take over, so Maggie, would you like to do your presentation?
I would. Actually, one is a request and a motion, and the other is support on committee. But as I was looking at the priorities and thinking back about our conversation at the last meeting around how the board can direct certain areas of concern or interest, I was looking at what we funded and realized there was no child welfare parent support programs that we really had taken any initiative on. And I was reminded of the presentation we had from Partnership for Strong Families back well over a year ago now regarding the potential loss of the Family Resource Center. And for those of us who've been around a while, those resource centers have made phenomenal contributions in every single community around child welfare, child safety, parent support, after school. I mean, you almost name any of our priority areas, and they've touched it. So not having that and not having had any follow-up, my motion with that preface is that we ask staff to meet with partnerships, get an update on what the impact has been of the changes to the 4E federal funds, and come back to us with a recommendation for what should be funded and at what level, if that's, if the board agrees with me that that should be something to really look at. I can't imagine our community without the resource centers, to be honest. They've done a phenomenal job on a fairly shoestring amount of money, and I think to lose them would just...
And would you include in that how it's funded?
Yeah, how it's funded, whether we should participate, what the
I mean,
status...
how we would fund it?
Yeah, how we would fund it, yes.
Okay.
So that's my motion.
Have a motion?
Second the motion.
Have a motion, second. Any discussion? Nancy, Dr. Hart.
I'm with Maggie. I cannot imagine this community without the resource centers. We've been so lucky to have them as long as we have, funded on a shoestring, wing and a prayer every single year. We have to keep them.
Yes.
Are currently the resource centers, are they funded through DCF or, I mean, how are they funded now?
Money comes down. I think
Stephen?
Steve here can answer that. And the short version that I understand is that there's the way that they've been allowed to use funds shift to Title IV, Fed changes how Title IV money could be used, which means they had to be redirected. So as I remember his presentation, here he can answer that, they were going to lose the ability to use those funds for the resource centers. Is that accurate?
That's correct. The state of Florida lost the 4A waiver years ago, and so that impacted our ability to have that flexibility. Coupled with the Family Service Prevention Services Act that went into effect on October 1st, that's really caused us to have to redirect when we are in peril.
Can I just make one other quick comment? If we're good at partnerships in the community, it's because of the resource centers and the model in the resource centers and how they keep going because of all the community partnerships. And I think we've exercised our muscle in community partnerships with the resource centers, and I think that's and thanks to the county commission for actually making us do that. It really was brilliant on their part.
How many partners are SWAG? Like 42 or?
We have 3 resource centers, but each have about 70 partners.
We really just look at it as Gainesville as a whole, so over 75, and honestly, I could easily say over 100 formal and informal partners between those 3 sites, that are shared. So definitely a lot of partnerships that are here in the room. We do partner with Howard Bishop, with BCS, so a lot of this that's in the room.
So Maggie, do you have, Steve, do you have any idea how much we're talking about? Money?
How much money we would want? Between $200,000 and $300,000.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any further discussion, any public discussion? Ken?
Colin, have you looked at kind of what goals they would focus on? I mean, they touch pretty much all 4 of the goals.
Yep.
And we have a real shortage in, obviously, safety and literacy, but have you gotten that far yet to where you're looking at that, or are you going to bring that back?
I think we'd bring it back. Like the community school, it depends on exactly what, something specific they wanted us to fund or what it was. I think I mainly looked at it from the child welfare side as a family strengthening and support type program, but it does do a lot of things, so it would fit into a number of goals.
Any further questions? Ashley?
Just sort of happy to use that.
Thanks.
Is that it?
Not a lot to add. I know, talking about the priorities, that, with really, I agree, that we fall under all 4 of the priorities, and kind of that, the children, being able to live in a safe community, and then also being able to have a physical at home, those are the 2, although I think we need all 4 of those, 2 that really kind of stood out to me, but priorities.
Thank you. Thanks, Ashley. Any further comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's unanimous. Okay, next.
Thank you.
Governance Committee, we have met on October 12th. It was a very exciting meeting. We had Lee and I.
Same meeting I was.
Lee and I, as well as staff and county attorney, were present present, we reviewed a basic set of policies, some sample policies, and then kind of had discussion about all of those and set staff off to rework. We have now gotten a draft back that we will be meeting on the 16th of this month to review. So I think we're on track to have a full policy manual to present for approval by the January deadline that we had set, that we wanted to have those by. Anything you want to add to that?
Nope.
I think we're on track.
I believe you left out the word riveting.
It was riveting. Anyone who's ever written policies knows how exciting it can be.
Any questions of Maggie? Okay, all right, we don't need to do anything.
No, that was just a report on
Okay.
where we are.
Okay, all right, Colin, I think you're up.
Good afternoon. I wanted to brag on my team here because they've done a lot of work this last month. We've had a lot going on. I just wanted to give a quick rundown and also just prepare for what's coming in the next few board meetings. But the programs group, and this isn't in any particular order, but I think the first 4 youth development, capacity building collaborative classes are complete. You know, they were well attended. I think when we originally started thinking about doing this, we weren't sure how many people would show up, but it's been very well attended. We had a great Lights On After School event right here. It was a great opportunity to celebrate the work of the after school providers, to highlight the importance of high quality out of school time. And again, we also got some good media coverage for both our partners and the trust and the Cade Museum here, which was a great host. So that went very, very well. There was an article in the paper today in the Gainesville Sun about our kickoff of the Business Leadership Institute for Early Learning. That's part of our Pritzker initiative, and Mia and the whole group over there worked really hard to put that together. We actually had 2 events back to back. On the 4th, we had a recruitment dinner for the class, and I'm not sure how many child care center owners we had there, north of 20 in that range, maybe a little bit more. We were right over at the Sweetwater or something bed and breakfast. And then we had a community conversation at the chamber about the business of child care, and essentially about essentially really gave these business owners a chance, which many of them had never done, to begin to form a network of themselves of other business owners that are going through the same challenges of child care. I think Eric Godet's quote in the paper was great today, where he talked about the importance of knowing your numbers, and this is a great time to be talking about this because there's a lot of money flow down to Florida through the and we want to make sure that the people that provide the services, which are the business owners, and for-profit, not-for-profit, some are religious, some are home-based, but are in a position to make sure that they can inform the state of the best use of these funds so we can, provide the kind of high-quality child care that we need. And it really layers on what we're doing, so you can't have, many of these child care centers talked about the difficulty of staff, so you can coach staff all day. If they don't stay, you're just kind of like a hamster on a the circle, the thing, the thing. Anyway, it's the wheel, thank you. Again, you always wonder who's gonna show up. It was great. The chamber has jumped right on and done everything they've been asked to do. These are probably potential new chamber members someday as well. So it kind of layers on to what we're doing very, very well. So that's been a big success. The group worked really hard on that. The team has also given me the ability to kind of get some wind under my wings. I was glad to be out in Hawthorne last month to speak to the City Commission in Hawthorne and Mayor Randall and the team out there to hear about how much they would like the summer program out there. They also talked about some services that they'd like to see at their schools, which I'm sure the district has probably heard as well. That was followed up with a meeting with the city manager out there, and she actually attended our Business Leadership Institute meeting as well. We've had some individual meetings with some officers, public officials in High Springs. I'll be in Waldo tomorrow at their city commission. We'll be in Newberry in a few weeks. And I'm excited to be at Gainesville for All also, I think on Wednesday. So really the group here has taken on a lot of stuff and allowed me to get out there just doing a great job. So that brings us to December. December will be a busy board meeting. Just to prepare everybody, we'll have a few match funding requests to hear. To address literacy in the summer, we're going to propose a pilot with the Ucs Collaborative for Equity in Education and bringing a Children's Defense Fund Freedom School to the county next year. We'll be able to say more about that. We will have some awards for our Youth Development Capacity Building Collaborative ITN. We'll have a recommendation for award for Help Me Grow. And we will be able to talk more about the Summer Youth Employment Program, which looks like it's going to be 2 contracts. It's going to be a contract with the county to administer the payroll of the students, and then an RFP for an agency to recruit sites, train kids, recruit kids, all of that stuff. And that RFP will be before the board next week as well. So the December meeting will be a busy meeting. Okay, which then, after that, just to prepare, not to get too far ahead, but January, the meeting schedule you just approved, our annual meeting is supposed to be in January, and that's a longer, set to start at 1, I believe, in the packet. Do y'all want to revote now? Lee, do you want to revote now that you know it's a longer meeting, or you good with that? Okay.
Yeah. Will I still be chair?
Okay, anyways, so, but, at that meeting, our intent is to have the summer RFP on that agenda. Now, at the last meeting, I don't remember exactly who, but 1 or 2 board members said, well, when do we get a chance to give input on that? And so, if you would like, staff would be happy to have another meeting the week of December 13th, not the day of our board meeting. We could do it before, it's really up to all of you, but to just workshop the summer RFP. So if there's any concerns, we are able to flush them out, and then...
I would prefer not another meeting, but come early to workshop.
Okay.
That what y'all want to do? How long do you want to allocate? A couple hours? Hours?
Come at 3.
Okay. 3 o'clock?
Sounds good.
Sorry, which date?
That would be the 13th. Someone double check me on that. Is our next meeting?
That's what I have on my calendar.
Yeah, so it would be, instead of coming at 4, you'd come at 3. We'd have 2 meetings, a workshop at 3 and 4. And then...
In January, we'll have one at 1. Our meeting is at 1.
Yes. And in December, we will be seeking some feedback on some items to discuss at that meeting as well. So we have plenty to discuss, but we'd like some direction. It's when we really start planning even for next year. Okay. That brings me to, speaking of meetings, this has been a great place to meet. There has been,
What'd you say?
this the cadence. There we go. Thank you for setting me up. There have been occasional complaints, though, about, I think what's changed is I don't think we're ever going back from people wanting to be able to sit at home and listen to meetings and participate. I mean, I think that ship has sailed, so it's up to us to adjust. This has been a great place to have meetings. Our upstairs room in our building is also a great place to have meetings. The challenge is it is not yet equipped to have meetings. And so, in my previous life, when I was at the city, we equipped this was pre-Zoom, we equipped a board meeting for our boardroom for sound and light and all of that stuff. And so I expected it to be a lot of money, but we asked the county, who knows how to do this stuff, because we don't know how to do it. They recommended a vendor in Howard, which is on a state contract, federal contract, doing the equestrian center, and the emergency, so we figured they know what they were doing. So we said we want it to work. We want to be able to have trainings, and have people come in and be in person and somewhere else, and we just want it to work. And we want it to be easy to use, easy to transport. And so the item in your board packet, item number 11, purchase of AV equipment, is a Cadillac of a... It'll pretty much let us do anything we want to do, but it's not cheap, and it was not budgeted for. So can always do it cheaper, by the way, that's one thing, there's always a cheaper way to do it. You know, in this case, I said, well, if we get some pushback, what would we cut? Well, you can take off some microphones. Here we have a microphone here, and I don't know where the other one is, but in our proposal, everybody would have a microphone so you can hear and all of it. So anyways, it can always be done cheaper, but this will work, and the vendor's reputable. The other thing is, we plan on having, as people get more comfortable, more trainings in that room and really make it a community room. The first training from the BLI will be rough. We'll probably just have a projector and a screen that we borrow, but things like that, we want to be able to use this room for as well. So, this proposal, would work. The money comes from our appropriated reserve, which is kind of what it's there for. We have not made a capital expenditure yet as a board, so this would be the first one. And so, if the board so pleases or desires, we'd like a motion to approve the purchase of the AV.
Motion and then questions?
Motion, I so moved to go with, recommendation.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion in 2 seconds. Questions?
I had one question. When I read the proposal, not that I know anything about the equipment, but in there it said that the cameras were placed side by side at client's request, and I was wondering why you requested that.
Oh, God. I can tell you what the cameras will do. I don't know if that means side by side or what, we'll make it work. It's gonna allow us to, photograph I don't know if photograph is the right word, stream the room from 2 different angles. So you'll be able to see the full room from the screen, kind of like this, from regardless of where the viewer is. So the viewer can see the whole room is the point. So I don't know if that meant side by side at our request or not, but we want to make it show the whole room, so that's what we can do.
Thank you.
I want to speak in support of this. I think you can be penny wise and pound foolish around audio-visual equipment, and it is something people have complained about, that when they are listening in, they can't hear half of what's being said. So I think it's, especially given the fact that it's not just a board thing, and we're going to use this space to train, and we know it's going to be hybrid, I just think it's worth making sure we've done it right.
Just want to make sure everything can be done hybrid if needed, right?
Yes.
So the training, the community activities, the meetings, I'm all for it.
So, should we go, if, in 100 years, if the county does, a building or something, they will already have an audio system at that point, is there gonna be any sort of resale, or would you take this equipment and give it to the county and say, put it in the building, or any other building that we might buy?
Well, if we move buildings, we could take this with us. That's one of the things we asked.
Mm-hmm.
So this is portable. If we went with the county, I would say the probabilities are low just because of the county's time. But I would say that we would then be placed, could they use it, or would we then surplus it, which we would have to do. What was the third scenario?
That was, or any other place.
Our intent is that this would be our, to have it for a while.
And it may be out of date by the time, if the county does something. And that's not a criticism, much. So, it just takes a long time for government. It just takes a long time for government to do stuff. So, yes, caller.
So, I think it's expensive, and I'm not sure, I understand that we don't want to miss out on this, but when we're talking about the Cadillac of sound systems for, a taxpayer-funded community effort, I guess what I would request is, and because I just did this not long ago in our own boardroom, I went through the county as well for suggestions as far as who should we use, and so we went through Encore, and there's also Sound Solutions, and so I'm wondering, could I at least propose we get a couple competitors on top of this?
If you can give us the names, I think that was part, Colin said that this is who was recommended, so he tried that. So if some other names and we can get bids, that'd be great. So, Ken?
Yeah, I'll disagree with that recommendation. This is a leased building. How long are we leasing it, Colin?
Well, we have Lisa through 2023, but Lisa right now through 2023.
So the idea too, though, is we may, if it doesn't work out with the county, we may end up attempting to buy this building, have to go down a lot to the building. What's the timeframe? If we got a couple bids,
If we approve it today, we think we can have it by February. If I've got to go get bids, and remember, this has already been competitively bid and is on two different contracts, a federal contract and a state contract.
Oh, it has.
Yeah, this is off of we use our policy that allows us to purchase off a state and federal contract, and it has both, and the contracts are listed in the item.
Did you get multiple people?
We had trouble getting people come to give us bids without wanting to charge us. We tried that route first. We did get someone to come. We got about a $20,000 something or other and said, will this work? And it was basically a very similar to setup that we had here, fire mics, all of that stuff. And so then after that, when I was not persuaded that it would work the way we wanted it to work, I said, please call the county's procurement department, ask them who they recommend. This is who they recommended, and this is what we got.
Dr. Simon, the school boards was like, if I remember, 160?
For what we're talking about tech-wise, it was probably more around like the 130, 140. We had some, like physical structures that we had, built, and I'm not sure, like that table that you have with the camera that takes up images. The other thing I will just point out to you, we were supposed to be scheduled to do installation June 1, and we finished end of August because we ran into a supply chain issue with a lot of the technology.
Yeah. I'm okay with it.
You okay with leaving that as the way it is? Okay. And the seconders, we're okay with that? Okay. Okay, any further discussion? Yes.
Service contract comes the first year, and we'll see how it goes. I would imagine that we would probably put one in the budget.
Yeah, I read it quickly, but I saw the cost. We've all had the option.
Colin, I do have one, but we wouldn't need a camera operator or anything like that, or would the cameras just kind of, we have staff that operate the cameras at our, or whatever, but the cameras you have, you said they show the entire room, you wouldn't have to have someone to operate the AV equipment, or would the staff be trained to be able to do that, or whatever?
Staff should be able to train to do the audio stuff, which is the biggest part of the concern. They have this special touchpad system, which I've used before. The cameras are static, so they're not like the county or the school board where they move depending on who's talking. Now, we could add that in, that would add the price. But we'll see. We're going to have to write a SOP manual or something at least, so anyone can know how to do it. So, but we think for the first 90 days of the training and the service contract, it should be okay.
Any questions from the public? Ashley? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion, no, okay, motion is, 7-1 with Dr. Simon in dissent. Okay, next thing, partnership, contract.
Yes. I'm excited about this. The purpose for the Partnership for Reimagining Gainesville Fund Agreement, if you recall, this has been discussed numerous times in preparing the budget. Really, the Partnership for Reimagining Gainesville, I'm looking around to see if, was an original partnership between the University of Florida and the City of Gainesville, designed for ideas that come to the community that are not yet developed, that the Community Foundation has put together a group that provides technical assistance. And to a certain point, then you can get funding for your idea as a pilot to see how it works. And so we also have organizations that serve children that have new ideas or that are ideas from the community that need that kind of support and would like the chance to get funded. And so rather than create something new, this is an opportunity where we wanted to take a year and experiment to see if working through the partnership for Reimagining Gainesville would be a worthwhile endeavor. So our contribution would be $50,000. Everyone would have to go through the same process. We would get a right of refusal on anything that was recommended for funding. But really what makes the Partnership for Reimagining Gainesville unique, in my view, is the support that they get from the committee members that are involved. So there's a number of organizations that are kind of in the pipeline. Only 2 or 3 have received funding. I think 3 thus far. And so, Dr. Labarde, I don't know if you wanted to talk, but I think this is what we'll try for a year to see how it goes.
I'll say I'm on the advisory committee, representing the foundation, and it's a really interesting process. We get ideas, literally, you just can submit an idea, any individual can do that, and then depending on how developed it is or how ready they are to actually execute, they get technical assistance, and some of that comes directly from the city and university staff that have been involved in some teams that they put together. Sometimes some of us on the committee actually have expertise in the area, and we get involved to provide support and technical assistance. And then when they get to a place where they have a solid budget and we think that they can take the funding and usually been pilot or idea development, it's not operations, ongoing sustainability kind of funding. But it is a way to test out new ideas, get some evidence behind you so that you can then support a proposal for something more sustainable and long-term.
Motion?
I have a question for Dr. Maggie.
You can go ahead and ask.
I can go ahead and ask him? Okay, good. Maggie, since you're on the board there, and there's some members on the board also, and I saw some organizations that received some funding. I'm not sure if they received funding, I guess I'm gonna ask if they.
Yeah, there've been very few projects that have gotten to that point. Most of them are still in the, let's help flesh out the idea, let's take a look at what you've got in mind. I think that we have funded, I'm trying to remember, because I wasn't on from the very, very beginning. So I think since I've been on, we've funded 1, and I think there may have been 1 or 2 others that got funded ahead of that. There is going to be a showcase, if anybody's kind of interested in it, on the 14th, actually, out here.
They're coming to
some of the folks that have been involved and had funding will be presenting, but I think given the opportunity of right of refusal, and given the fact that I think new ideas is something we want to encourage, but not everybody is ready to receive funding with the kinds of strictures that we have, I think it's just a nice opportunity for us to participate in helping develop those ideas and get them to the point where they're more mature and ready. So I'll actually make the motion that we approve it.
Okay, a motion, do we have a second?
Second for discussion. Wait, Colin, who else is funding the Reimagining Gainesville?
University of Florida,
How much are they funding?
75, and the city of Gainesville, 75.
Okay, so it's 150, and then after plus the 50, so 200. So what does that support? Is it like 3 staff people or 2 staff people, or what are they using?
It's all money that will be granted out.
So it goes into the community foundation, which will then grant out money for new ideas. Oh, I see.
Correct.
So it's an incubator.
It's truly an incubator, and it's a pilot, so there is, the idea is this is going to be there for a year, 2 years, 3 years, see if it works as a process.
And is it focused on children?
They have 4 priorities, which are in the presentation. Our funding would only go towards what we can fund, which is children, 0 to 18, Alachua County, and our priorities. But they have 3 priorities and then a 4th one that basically is a catch-all.
Local food systems, community health and wellness, education, and vocational
So
training.
one of the projects that is getting some funding, I'm thinking through this, switch committee hats for a minute, is a process to develop a food, they're using that as an example of a way of developing a community engagement, community grassroots effort to create projects. And so really the idea is how to get, it's the process, not so much the food piece in that one. There was a youth kind of leadership, business savvy program that ran in partnership with the Gainesville Housing Authority for several weeks, and that had some really good results. And so that's one of the ones that was funded. Those are the kinds of projects that they have been supporting. Again, they're pilots. These are both demonstrations, pilot kinds of things, and the idea then is to get those to how do you scale them, and how do you move those forward. United Way, I'm not sure that they've committed funds, but they are part of it.
Any other questions? And we have a motion. Any public discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion unanimous. Next item would be, I think Christie's on board.
So the program, report, there are two, reports today. The first one will be the continuation funding, recommendation. Today, I provided you with, three different updated staff report, actual stage 2 scoring and recommendation. And then you have a copy of the program, report with the, recommended, program highlighted on that form. So the funding process that we introduced to you all, at the last meeting, that was created to, again, provide continuation funding for, program that was funded under the 20-937 RFP. That included, programs from fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021. The criteria used to, rate those year-end reports it was approved by the board, at that October 11th meeting, and if you need to reference that criteria, page 121. So for this continuation funding, there were a total of 32 providers that were qualified for stage 1. And at the completion of the review of the year-end report, there were 7 that advanced to stage 2 of the process. Those 7 are listed on your updated staff report that I provided to you, and that's Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Tampa, Florida Institute for Workforce Innovation, New Technology Now Made Simple. Actually, I said that incorrectly. New Technology Made Simple Now. Partners in Adolescent Lifestyle Support, which is also known as PAL, Peaceful Path, Christian Fellowship of Gainesville, and Pay Center for Girls. What you will find on handout that looks like this is the 7 recommended providers. And what you'll find is each provider, their program. You'll also notice that we provided for you the CTAC strategy that they fall under. And just as a reminder, what we were really looking for is an opportunity to provide funding for those unfunded strategies. You'll also see the score for their alignment, their cost benefit, and then their total score from the raters for CTAC. Big Brothers and Big Sisters, I'll just go over one as an example. Their average total was a 7.7. The funds they requested was $29,564. The max that they could request was also $29,564, and we are recommending them for that amount. Now, all 7 providers were provided with a letter from the Trust Programs Department identifying the required documentation and the time frame they needed to reference to submit their proposal continuation funding opportunity. There is a total that we are recommending from the board, and that is $372,536. And so what we are asking is the trust to authorize the executive director to negotiate contracts with these 7 providers, negotiating contracts not to exceed the recommended amount found on your scoring and recommendation documentation.
Questions?
Yeah. Chrissy, I didn't catch, why there was between the funds requested and the maximum funding, request allowed. Can you help me with that?
Yes, of course. So the original funding that was allocated for this amount was around around 320, 380,000. I don't have that in front of me right now. But after we were able to close out a few contracts and a few programs, it was recommended by the board that we add funding to, that total amount. And so we were, looking at the criteria and then able to decide if we limited the restrictions, the funding restrictions, then we could fund additional programs at that amount. And so it was, let's use one of the programs as an example. Florida Institute for Workforce Innovation, their original, allocated amount under 20-937 was over $100,000. So if we funded all of the programs at the amount they were originally allocated, we would only be able to fund 2 or 3 of those programs. So by restricting the amount to $75,000, it allowed us to fund additional programs. So not only did we restrict the max amount to $75,000 for those that did not receive $75,000 in their original allocation, that is the maximum amount they could receive.
So I understand 75 was the max, like, look at the program at the bottom, the last one in the list? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So they requested 61,
That's correct.
and they were recommended for 42. Well, what's the difference there?
So in the instructions to respond to this application, the instructions, and I'll read it here for you. What it says is, request for continuation funding shall not exceed $75,000 or your contract allocation under Article 9.
So they just couldn't get any more than they got the prior.
Oh, okay, that's what okay.
That is correct. So there are two programs that are like that. You have Vineyard and you have, I believe it's Diesel Band.
Ken?
So Christie, we're recommending, 75,000 for PACE, 75,000 for PALS, 75,000 for Project Youth Build, 30,000 for Big Brothers, Big Sisters, around that. 28,000 for Peaceful Paths, 48,000 for new technology. That's correct. That approximately. Okay, move Stafford.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. I have a question. Christie, I must be missing something on the addition. It said they had to have, 15 score, and the Vineyard one doesn't look like it has that, unless I'm just reading wrong.
Stage 1 is, stage 1 requires you to score 15 or higher to move to stage 2. Stage 2 did not require you to have 15 or higher.
Okay.
So if you look at page 127 in your packet, all 32 programs that were evaluated. The top 7 are highlighted in green. Those are the ones that scored 15 or higher and advanced to the second stage of the continuation process.
Okay, so, what was the possible score?
15%.
No, I mean, what was it, 30 is the top score that you get?
Maybe around 20, I believe. Or are you referencing stage 2? So for stage 2, you have 2 different stages.
Okay.
So for stage 15.
I'm looking at this sheet. Here.
What is the top score they can receive for stage 2?
Looks like 30.
No.
It looks like Bonnie, Belita, and Dion, they all gave 10 points.
That's an average.
He's looking at the average.
Page you on?
The packet that.
The additional documentation that was provided.
I see the average total, but I also see a total there, listed
That is
by the rater.
That's each individual rate.
Right.
That's for each individual rater.
So if there are 3 people in the vote, then it would be possible to get 30 points.
And then you take the average, which is the 7.7. So we were taking the average, not a total for all 3 raters. We took the average of the 3.
Okay, all right. Why was there not that same level of cutoff? Because, I mean, there's a pretty big difference between a 4 and all the rest of them. And I'm not picking on this one, but it doesn't look like it's, got the scores that the other ones got.
So are you looking at one in particular, or is your question in general, why was there
There's
maximum?
There's one in particular, without mentioning names, that is not,
Our grader.
doesn't seem like, got the scores with the same people, that the rest of them got.
So I think you're looking at the alignment, and what we decided internally, once we did the allocation for this, funding opportunities, we saw that this was an opportunity to fund all the programs. And they are good programs. What you're
Okay,
seeing.
all right, you can stop there. You can stop there. If you said they're all good programs, that's fine. I'm doing.
Okay.
Christie, I think I missed like a major thing. So all of these groups are going to continue what we funded them to do before, and they suffered through COVID. And I imagine they all couldn't do everything they wanted to do because of COVID. And now we're continuing them, but we aren't allowing them to ramp up. Do they have a plan to try to do everything they couldn't do before with the same money? I feel a little bit sympathetic, but at the same time, I want to know that they used our money as well as they could.
So we're able to, even for the programs from fiscal year 20, as well as programs that just ended from fiscal year 20, we are able to work directly with them with not only, their scope of work, but also their performance measures, and ensuring that they are able to do exactly what you're saying. Meet those performance measures, provide the services, as written within the services. One of the things we're excited about at the trust is the implementation, of this new research and evaluation position. Because that is, for example, the CHS program, where we talked about, the performance evaluations that came directly from results-based accountability and being able to utilize that research and evaluation position to ensure the programs are providing as
You done? Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
The ones that are shown in stage one that are zero, is that because they didn't submit anything?
So, page 133.
It's actually one, I think that's contact.
So page 133, that is correct. So if they did not submit their report in a timely manner, or when you look at the criteria, the completeness, there were different sections within the criteria that they needed to respond to. If they didn't respond, that is what will cause them to be rated.
Any further questions? Any public discussion? Yes.
Hi, we are Gainesville Defense with the Gainesville Vineyard. Appreciate, very thankful for all the work the staff has done to go to this process. Just a few things that I wanted to point out. The original funding cycle from Children's Trust was March through October. This funding, March through October, this funding cycle is from January through October. So there is a longer period of time this is covering, that the funds have to cover for each of these agencies based on the limitations. So that's.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Okay, those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion unanimous. Christie, next one.
The second update from the program department is the youth development capacity building invitation to negotiate. The youth development capacity building collaborative was introduced back in September. The goal of the collaborative is to enhance the out-of-school time providers' organizational capacity and strengthen the out-of-school time system across Alachua County. Through this collaboration and with the help of the trust, providers will be able to identify what their needs are and complete a capacity building plan. The purpose of the invitation to negotiate is to support these providers in the development and the implementation of that plan. And that plan will focus on increasing program access, program quality, and/or the organizational readiness for those providers for future CTAC funding. Along with our usual requirement for a funding solicitation from the trust, things such as qualified to conduct business in the state of Florida, not be an Alachua County public school or charter. Providers must have applied to the youth development capacity collaborative and been accepted into the collaborative. They were required to complete a baseline survey. They must have completed the trainings, and Colin mentioned those trainings earlier. They were conducted in October, and then there was one earlier in the month of November. They must have offered a summer program in 2019, 20, or 21, and/or must have offered an after-school program during the school years of 19, 20, 2021, or currently. We also expect programs that submit a response to this invitation to negotiate to implement creative, innovative programming, operate a program at a physical location, serve children K through 12, and be responsible for the supervision of those children, and not be an enhancement provider that only provides drop-in services for another program. The overview of the solicitation, so the total funding for this invitation to negotiate is $300,000. A successful response for this invitation to negotiate would be, again, that completed capacity building plan, a completed organizational capacity self-assessment with SMART goals, and the trust has been working very closely with the After-School Network and has provided training to about 40 out-of-school time providers on this assessment. A completed budget summary, which will include fiscal year 20 and 21 actual program amount and detailed after-school and summer expenses. Successful applicants, will be awarded these dollars through the trust and through a submission of that capacity building, those capacity building plans. It is our intent to release the invitation to negotiate tomorrow via our website, along with our other open solicitations. And the scope of service, again, it includes the Florida After-School Network standards. Those standards are provided to you in your binder, and for those that don't have a binder, those standards are administration and organization, program management and staff, communication and interaction, program structure and activities, health, safety and nutrition, program environment, family and community involvement, and system. For budgeting, providers, if they submit a successful response to the invitation to negotiate, will be awarded the capacity building funds and indirect planning, and programs will be awarded 20% of their verified out-of-school time program revenue in previous years. And the second option opportunity is direct costs. And programs will be awarded direct costs to support the implementation of specific activities that will be associated with increasing their capacity. So that could be DCF licensing, that could be the cost of background screening. Those are the costs that the trust intends to be able to support these providers with. Many of our out-of-school time providers, they're working on doing these things because they know that this is what we're going to require, and this is how we feel that we can assist them with that. We will have funding restrictions, and so providers will be informed of these through the invitation to negotiate. For an example, the purchase of capital equipment will be restricted, so capital equipment represents individual items purchased at a cost of $1,000 or more. revenue replacement or revenue losses experienced during the contract period, that's a restriction, and real property. So those are examples of what providers will find in the, invitation to negotiate as a restriction. They will be able to request funding, for direct costs for those tasks that I mentioned earlier, to purchase supplies and materials, needs to improve the safety and wellness of the program activities, to purchase, software and technology, that wouldn't individually cost over $1,000. For the program timeline, we expect to approve capacity building plans in October. There will be monthly meetings that those awarded these fundings will be able to attend and provide progress and updates on the plans that we have approved. They'll work directly with contract providers to monitor what we said we would fund, monitor the expenses. And so the timeline would go from January through August 31st, with the RFP for summer that would have been released prior to then, and so they would be aware of what it is they're able to accomplish.
Question on that? So Chrissy, did you say awarded January through August? Because I saw that, not October.
Yeah.
No, not October.
Okay, so.
October is when the reports are due, which I have a question about.
October, right, 2022, reports due from January through August. So the idea is you would award these at our December meeting?
Yes.
So bring back, so.
Yes.
Put it out on the street tomorrow to approve, and then bring it back to us.
In December.
Okay.
And that'll be the time frame henceforth in following years as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if we approve capacity building in the budget.
Yeah. Because my question,
The budget every year.
if it went with the budget cycle, which it's not doing, but if it went with the budget schedule, you wouldn't want the reports due in October, because then you couldn't use the criteria to determine whether, but you're putting in, so I guess my question is, why is this cycle different from, other cycles?
Just getting it all.
I mean, in future,
Organization.
in future years, if you choose to do this going on, will it be during the regular budget cycle?
Answer that?
I would say this is a pilot. Yes, we always like to do October to September. It makes life easier. But
Okay.
say this and see how it goes.
Okay, all right. And this year's just different because it's new. Okay. Maggie?
When you're talking about either 20% of prior year revenue or direct costs, vaguely, I remember the last time we talked about that some of that could include if you have to take a staff person offline to develop some of this, their time could be paid for. Did we not talk about, I thought we had talked about that last time.
Yes, of course.
So
if I had somebody who was actually working with kids and I needed their time to do some of these tasks.
this is a very liberal RFP. For people that, would like, the money to be very easy to access, this is it. So the 20%, is it 20 or 25%? 20% of revenue. The capacity building plans are based on two things: the Florida After School Network Standards, number one, and then number two, any direct costs for licensing, ELC, or things that Christy mentioned. Direct costs are cost reimbursement type expenses, to where you'll have to either allocate some time or.
Right, time sheet driven.
The other ones are literally deliverable based. We'll come up with their 20% amount. If they have 5 goals, we'll divide it by that, and literally, they'll get the money, and it's almost like they can do, we're not gonna track the
I
expenditure.
just want to make sure that staff time isn't one of those restricted uses of the fund.
So the incentive for the capacity building side of the 20% could be used for staff time, but we're not gonna make them document that. We're just gonna give them the funds if they meet the goals.
And in the invitation to negotiate, it does say eligible funding used is to account for staff time spent planning, developing, and strategy. So that is allowed. Lastly, the evaluation criteria, each application will be evaluated against following criteria. So organizational eligibility, and the capacity building plan. And so, that's it. had,
So Christie, what results are you looking for? Real,
They accomplished the goals in their plan.
okay, so what,
their assessment through the Florida After School Network, they will have to identify, 5 to 10 goals that they need to work on. And then based on those, they'll need to create SMART goals, they'll put that in their capacity building plans, and we will monitor and work with them. And, what we've done is we've built support around this. So based on what you need, they're still meeting with CTAC, and more than just the contract managers. We will have a whole plan, we have meetings, we are trying to create an atmosphere where all out-of-school time providers can come together and discuss everything that they're working on and build that relationship and strategize and bounce ideas off of each other. And so it's not just, here's your plan, figure it out. We've had training, we've introduced them to the folks at ECF, we've introduced them to the Florida After School Network and what we can offer them through the network as well. So as they are submitting their plans with their SMART goals, that's when we're able to create the performance measures and monitor that from there.
okay, thank you. Tina?
How many, organizations did you have participate in, the trainings since we're done?
So we had, over 45 organizations sign up for the collaborative. For each training, we've had between 30 and 40 representatives on each, sign into each training. And from there, I think in your binder, you had the list of trainings. Based on that, there were some trainings were required, some were optional, but based on that, that is what will determine, whether they are eligible to submit a response to the invitation to negotiate.
Thank you.
Pat?
I just would like to make a comment, because we talked about the, evaluation unit getting up and running, and I'm sure you all are familiar with co-looking and MCL as a methodology to help people set goals, set SMART goals. There's actually a methodology for looking at, I'm happy to send information for you all. I think it would be a good adjunct for helping people think about, you rate whether your goal was achieved, you had more performance than you expected to achieve, or less, and then why. So it's a very simple metric, but it's very, very helpful for commonly used evaluations that are more focused on goals and goals.
Okay. Any further questions?
I'll forward it to you all.
Any questions? Any more questions? Okay, motion? Yeah, let's get a motion first.
I'll move for second.
Okay, motion second, any further discussion from the board? Any public discussion? Ashton?
Well, I support the motion, and I think the capacity building so far, the staff has done an excellent job getting everybody together. I think my question is around numbers, Exhibit A, 7, number I, 7I, that not being enhancement providers primarily provide and add-in services to another program. Out of that 45 that have been on the call and Zoom meetings with us, I would like to know maybe how many out of that 45 are those kind of secondary providers. And I would argue that well over half would that category is I. And they're great organizations, and organizations like ours and many others, like Boys and Girls Club and Girls Place and others, couldn't do what they do well without those in there and so I guess what my question and confusion is, a lot of the messaging has been to those providers who have to attend the trainings and meetings to get their funding. But this says that you're not going to get a chance to get the funding. Is that correct, or is that biased?
Did y'all hear the question, Christie?
So we really wanted to encourage, the enhancement providers to, participate in the collective, for a few different reasons. One, because we know they're working directly with the full-time providers, and they're working directly with the children. They are not receiving funding through this, initiative, but there are other initiatives that we are looking into to ensure that those providers have the funding to continue to go back to, places like Girls Place, places like Angels in Motion. For them to participate, because getting their feedback is how we're going to identify their needs, how we're going to identify the type of funding that they need.
Ken?
So this was, since Commissioner Prizzi isn't here to speak for it, this came up at our board meeting. This is something that's important to the county commission. Are the secondary providers able to include their funding or their services through a primary provider?
Yeah.
And that in sense is kind of what it sounds like you're encouraging.
Colin?
How are they, will the primary provider be rewarded for collaboration if they bring in secondary? How are we gonna grade that?
So our current after-school providers, were able to request dollars for those services.
Yeah.
I think that there was some, not confusion, but, providers were concerned about having to go out and identify who those providers are. But when we created the after-school RFP, we knew the providers were already, receiving services from the yoga providers and the STEM providers. So our intention was, you're working with them, go ahead and write them into your RFP, which they did. What we're hoping to do with our programs moving forward with summer and after school is identify, funds that we can allocate for those providers.
In addition.
Wait, funds for the secondary or the primary?
For the secondary. And it's,
Can I?
yes.
This is not, we're not funding programming through this RFP, right? So the argument is, right, so one of the argument, and this is why we want to have the workshop in December, is that there are people that have places to fund programming that need capacity to be able to have places to have programs. That involves licensing, that involves potentially partnering with the ELC for school readiness funds to get ready to take expenses, trainings, and as we went through the standards, the Florida After School Network standards, you could hear the comments in that if you're a push-in provider, not all of those things apply to you. So the burden of meeting the requirements of being an after-school program where there's a place for kids to go falls on the people that run the places. Much like in childcare, the burden of a childcare center falls on the childcare center owner. The burden of this falls on the agency that has the place where the kids go.
Or capacity.
Yeah. So, our summer RFP, we don't expect to look like it did last summer. Because we recognize that there's people that go around to other summer camps and do things. And, you know, if people don't want to partner and subcontract with them, then we can come up with alternative funding mechanisms to fund them, and ditto for after school. And at the same time, their universe of potential partners could expand because they could go to even a child care center that has an after-school program and provide their services there or something. So, but the burden of meeting legal requirements and having capacity for programming falls on the people that are responsible for the physical locations, and that's primarily what this RFP was meant to address.
Yeah, they're trying to tell us something.
We gotta move around, we're like sitting still.
Does anyone being kicked out?
Okay, all right. Maggie, do you have a question?
No, I think Colin actually just answered.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a comment. I understood everything that you said, Colin. And I'm just envisioning a moment in time where we might actually require some of these after-school programs to engage the services of some of these supplemental providers that do special things that we think are so important that every program should have that specialty somehow graded in. So what I hear Christy saying and what I hear you saying, and I just want to emphasize and make sure I'm not being stupid, is that what you proposed here has a special function, which is not that. But I want to hear from you guys that you agree that someday we're going to be at the point where these supplemental providers will be provided for, and we may actually require the after-school programs to contract with these supplemental.
That's the intent, you know.
Okay, well, I'm just being dense now and saying this for the
But
sake
you have
of.
to understand, there is a problem. So
I
the
get it.
policy problem is that we feel, staff feels, is recommending that we need to do some work first on the fundamental place.
I get it, yeah.
Well, I'm hearing that the summer programs will have a much clearer pathway to including those supplemental services in a way that's more meaningful and perhaps easier for them to negotiate. And I strongly would support that as well, because I think that, as Addison just said, those things are, they need them in order to do. We should credit, so I think.
I guess another comment, Mr. Chair. I think literacy really rises up to me, bringing literacy to the programming. When you look at how much dollars we're allocating to after school as a part of our programming budget, and so I can see, bonus awards, staff thinking about our literacy goal. There's not a lot of dollars there, but there is literacy going on within after-school programming, or there could be. And I think that's a big focus that I want us to be thinking about moving forward.
I think literacy, wellness falls into that. Food, wellness, mental wellness, all of those things are not necessarily the focus of the after-school or summer program. But if you can partner and have that coming in,
Any further comments from the public? Ashley? Okay.
I have one other question, one other comment.
Okay.
When we received the report for summer programming, I think it was a month or two ago, I'm not sure, and there was a high amount, and there was some comments around cost per child to attend the program. Some of the programs were high because they did have the cost of these secondary programs in there. I just want to bring that back up, because bring that to everybody's memory. Some programs do partner with other agencies to come in, so they don't have to have staff on their, someone to have that specialty in there. So some of this is already happening, but it was almost like it was kind of in a negative, well, it costs so much for you all to deliver programming. Well, it costs so much for some programs because they had these secondary services that were coming in. So that's something we'll have to make sure. It's good we want the partnership, but just know that there's a cost to it. And when agencies are collaborating with another agency that's a secondary agency, they may not need a building and all that other stuff, but that secondary program is coming into the, like Boys and Girls Place, or agency, or Boys and Girls Club, that there is a cost to that secondary service. And so we want to make sure that we are funding them one way or the other, either the secondary organization directly, so that they can reach out, or funding it through the primary organization, so that they can bring those services in.
And I will say to that, Tina, I heard what you said. Some of them were pretty high, and at some point it's going to become, how much can we afford, because it limits space for somebody else, and that's something that we're going to have to figure out. It's not. I don't think we're there yet, but hopefully we'll be at that.
And I think scale too. Like with the DCF numbers, you got to have a certain staff ratio. So it could be, this summer here was different because, it had 2 summers because of COVID, but sometimes we have to look at it as kind of like if you got 2 kids there, you got to have 2, because you can't just have that though, hopefully you don't have a situation like that, but I think being able to scale and all the capacity building is going to help our primary. And
Yep. Okay. Any further comments? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Colin, you want to do the item 15, legislative priorities?
I'd move staff recommendation.
That's even better.
I'm going to have someone else do it, but hey, that's.
Okay. All right.
It's the state's legislative priorities.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public discussion? There being none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Okay. public comment?
Let's see, we have one from Tina Trelord.
Tina? Have at it. Hi.
Come to the mic, Tina, so the folks at home can hear what you're saying. Use the mic.
Oh, this is it?
Yeah. And this is about the presentation?
Yes, so this is to follow up on the presentation from the Howard Bishop Partnership School. I was reviewing their needs assessment that they provided in the packet, and I just wanted to follow up on one point that it reflected. The majority of respondents from the student parent community survey answered definitely maybe to the idea of having a health care and dental clinic at Howard Bishop Community Partnership School. This past week, we actually just finished up our screening. I'm not sure if I mentioned, I'm with the University of Florida Department of Community Dentistry. We just left Howard Bishop last week. So I did want to just share firsthand that the need of dental care is indeed there with these kids. We don't just go to Howard Bishop, we go to many Alachua County public schools. We see well over 2,000 kids in our local community. We do exams, screenings, we provide some preventative care. And I can just share with you firsthand that it's just so heartbreaking, the active infections that these kids have in their mouth, the just shell of a tooth and the decay that they have. This keeps them up at night, they lose sleep, which affects their education throughout the day. These kids are even bullied at school. I know that mental health is a priority of this group. So there really is a ripple effect, and I think sometimes this can be dismissed because people say they're just baby teeth. But if anyone here has ever had a toothache, you can just imagine this in a child having many toothaches. So I did want to just touch on that I think that the wellness coordinator is an important position, but I do want to just bring up the point that we do provide letters to these parents, letting them know what we've seen, but the parents know that the problem's there. So the problem that the wellness coordinator will face is there's nowhere to send these children. We have a program within our department that was previously funded by the trust, so I do want to say thank you for that. It's called Saving Smiles, and what we do from these children, we're able to identify in Alachua County Public Schools. We directly follow up with them and provide free dental care to these children in urgent needs. Shortly after the clinic, we're reaching out to other community partners for locations to find somewhere geographically close, because we also know transportation is an issue for parents as well. We then schedule with our dentist, and again, with these children with urgent needs who are in pain, who have active infections, we provide the care at no cost to them. So I know that we missed the mark this time just slightly for continuing funding, but I did want to just share, because we were talking about Howard Bishop, that the need is indeed there, and that I just ask that you guys consider us in the future for continued support. And we have tons of data, years of data, data from Saving Smiles, so if anyone's interested in that, I'd be happy to prepare something and share it for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for what you do. Yes.
Can you also share, like, the facility needs that you have when you share the data?
So really all that we need, I'll just step back for a second, we're looking for, the Title I schools are the ones where we're providing this preventative care. We're looking for facilities in close proximity to that. We really just need either one larger room kind of like this, or 2 rooms 15 by 15, no carpet, access to a sink, preferably wheelchair accessible. And we bring all of our stuff there, we see the kids, we pack up and leave, and we try and leave the space as or better than we found it. So very minimal need that we need for the space. And I'd be happy to share my email address with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes. That's somebody. Lee Gallion. Okay.
Good evening. I just wanted to bring up an email that I sent because I want to hopefully get other board member comments on it. I had sent it to Executive Director Colin and a few of the board members, but I'm not sure if, and the Children's Trust attorney, that is the county attorney, responded as well. I'm not sure if my concerns were answered. I think from a legal perspective they were, which is great. Thank you for the responses. But I wanted to try to get understanding of why Children's Trust needs identifiable information on the students that we serve, and identifiable from the student's name, to the race, to the gender, to the birth date, to the parent name, to the parent phone number, to the parent email, and how all of that is being protected. I have concerns because we just signed a contract saying that we'll provide it, but my other questions were concerning, is there an option to opt out? And I don't know if those questions were answered as well, and what if a parent doesn't want to give that information? Is there, and the reason I bring up the concerns is I'm used to giving aggregate data that's unidentifiable. Some, how many kids, the race, all of that, zip code, that's not the issue. It's when it's identifiable and that the information can be viewed from anybody that has the link, not password protected. So I have concerns, and I don't feel like they were addressed, and I put it in 6 bullet points. I'm saying this with a collaborative, not a critical concern, but I still don't feel like my concerns have been answered, and we're contractually obligated to provide this information. I would love other board members' opinions on why you as a board feel like you need that level of detail of our students who 100% are African American or Black and well below the poverty line, at least 150 or 200%. I feel a sense of responsibility to at least ask and get an appropriate response rather than defensiveness, which is how I feel we got it.
I just, I don't know that necessarily you're bringing up something that we don't have any backup on, we don't have anything, so I don't know that it's the appropriate time to necessarily have a discussion about that now, but I would say that I'm not really gonna feel comfortable doing anything because it's illegal. The discussion really becomes, between if there are legal reasons for asking for that information, at that point, we have to refer to our lawyer, but we can see what other members, but I really don't wanna get into a discussion about that right now. We can talk it up as a matter. Beg pardon? I didn't either.
So I did, and I think a big part of the question was, how it was intersecting with SBAC and FERPA, and, so our attorneys did respond that because the trust isn't asking for our data, they're asking for data that was submitted to Cases and Motions for the program, that really we have our own wall of we're not intersecting with a FERPA violation. I do think, or I guess my question would be, do we need to have student identifying information as the trust to do the work that we need to do? And then on top of it, I know that the proposal was on a Google Drive to save this. And so I would say that I think it's something we should seriously consider about the safety and security of a Google Drive with children's information.
I'd say refer it to, this is an item that we refer to Colin.
Could I make a motion that we have staff bring us a report on what they do with this data and what ways we can secure it? Because I kind of agree that we have to have special security for kids' addresses and phone numbers and stuff like that.
Yeah, second.
We have a motion, second, Bob.
Once we have the information, it is public record. And so it is not protected, unless we know, in fact, that these are children of a protected class, such as firemen, police, judges, that sort of thing. So that's kind of the issue. Now, as I recall it, and I will stand corrected, but this was in direct response to a request of the board that they have identifiable information so they can track where these children live and how the benefits are being delivered. So as far as I know, there is no legal requirement to have identifiable information. It's a question of to what level you need information to evaluate your programs.
So the motion was to refer to staff the issue and bring back a report.
So we could put it on a future agenda.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see that on an agenda as well, because as we start to do things like funding mental health services, I can guarantee you there's not a mental health provider. Give me a list.
Okay, I just wanted to say one.
It becomes public record.
I think Dr. Hart gave a good recommendation.
Right.
The kind of information we're asking for versus mental health and things that would fall under HIPAA and things that would fall under FERPA, we're not asking for any of that type of information. So, we'll be happy to give a whole presentation on exactly what we're doing for the data and the different laws that apply, and I have been through this many, many times.
Okay, that's fine. So we have a motion and a second, and hopefully not a lot of discussion. Any public discussion? There being none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, and bring it back when you have enough time to do it. So, all right, any more? Okay.
I hesitate to extend the meeting, but I have a very short recommendation. I already communicated with Colin about this earlier today. Just altogether different topic is the quality of early learning and care that we are going to be supporting in the next few years. And I just wanted to recommend, there is an article in the New York Times today that addresses what might be an avalanche of federal funds that come into early education and care. And I think this article very nicely summarizes what anyone who's going to be putting money into early learning and care might want to know about quality and the importance of quality in terms of outcomes, so that we don't see quantity as equivalent to quality in relationship to outcomes. And I know we don't, but I think it's nicely stated. This says it better than I do. The things that contribute to quality are research-based curriculum, stimulating spaces and materials, education and coaching for teachers, and small group sizes. But the biggest piece is how the teachers interact with children, whether they are on the floor, playing with them, using rich language, teaching problem-solving techniques, and providing emotional support. And I think that we just need to keep that standard in mind as we proceed over the next few years supporting early learning and care. Fortunately, we have Zucker Center, but still, we all need to be, and I recommend just read that article and get a feel for what's happening at the federal level, because I think it has to be reflected at this level as well. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, any other comments you might from council comments? There being none, move to us, Ken,
No, I'm good.
Tina, Nancy, Carlos, Cheryl. Okay, all right, we're good. So, Karen, do you have anything to say? Okay, all right. All right, so our next meeting is December the 13th, and it will be at 3 o'clock, is that correct, Colin? 3 o'clock is the next one, so.
13th, there's two meetings now, there's a workshop at 3 and a meeting at 4.
Right. Just lump it out into one meeting, anyway. So, with that, we are adjourned.
Workshop, you don't take action.
With a minute to spare.
Yeah.
Workshop, you don't take action.
Don't spend that minute too long.
London is very careful.
Well, thank you, and I'll see you. Hopefully everybody has a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Don't overdose on tryptophan. Turkey.
Oh. I actually about Dr. White. Toddler.
How are you, sir? Happy and
Yeah, I went to London pub on my birthday.
all right. Hopefully